Call the roll, please.
President Knobloch,
Here.
Vice President Gillen.
Here.
Oh, goodness, sorry about that. Treasurer Rayner.
Here.
Secretary Sislo, here. Director Bertel.
Here.
Director Becker.
Here.
Director James.
Here.
Director Nutting.
Here.
Director Ramirez.
Here.
Director Tausen.
Here.
Ex officio Marthouse.
Here.
All present, quorum's established.
Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the various minutes. All of them have been sent out by email. Everybody's had a chance to look at them. Anyone want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, Mr. James and Mr. Nutting seconds it. Okay, the next thing is the approval or amend the meeting agenda. We do have to move a couple of things, so someone want to make a motion to amend the agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Gillen makes that motion,
I'll second.
second by Mr. James. A couple of things. Number one, under the presentations, Elliot Holmes just called about 15 minutes ago. As one of their family members is sick with the virus, so they will not be here. And then we would like to move Sheriff Ricky Adams up to the next item on there. So it would be right after approve or amend the agenda. We'll move the sheriff there. If we have any presentations in the future, they will be done before the president reports. So, anybody have any questions on that? Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Everybody? Okay, the next thing then is Sheriff Ricky Adams.
I don't know whether I'll leave this mask.
If you want to go
Okay.
there. Sheriff, he's got the mic right there.
I just want to thank y'all for inviting me here. I sure appreciate it. I think this is the first one I've been to, so I am the sheriff here in Hancock County, going on my third term, and appreciate all the support I've always gotten out of Diamondhead. You know, we have a great relationship, I believe, with the POA as well as the city, providing their police force, so it's worked out real well for all of us. So if y'all have any questions for me or would like to contact me anytime, I'll give you all my cell number if you want to write it down, as well as our office number, and my cell number is 228-216-8888. And I do answer it, I have it in my pocket right now, so don't hesitate to call. You know, we have Captain AJ Gambino runs the office out here, so he's also really accessible. So if y'all have any kind of questions, any kind of issues, don't hesitate to call us. You know, we'll address them as we get them. And if anybody,
What was it again?
sir,
Your number?
228-216-8888. And our office number is 228-466-6900.
Sheriff,
Thank you,
Yes.
sir.
as you watch some of the stuff going on television that we see in some of these cities, what's your thought?
Sheriff, could you repeat that so they could hear?
Yes, he asked me what I thought about the goings on in the different cities around our country. I don't ever foresee it happening here, but I'll tell you, we would address it swiftly. You know, everybody's got a right to protest, they just don't have a right to violence. So, you know, and we've had a couple of protests here that went very well. You know, we don't expect anything, you know, out of the ordinary. We have a great relationship, really, with our people throughout the county. So the city, Wayland, and Bay St. Louis as well. So, you know, my office is open, people come in and out all the time. And to me, it really doesn't matter, you know, race, religion, it doesn't matter. Just come see us. If you got an issue, we'll address it. You know, man to man, woman to woman, whatever, you know, we'll just handle it straight up. Anything else? Well, thank y'all for having me. I sure appreciate it.
Okay, thanks for coming by. Okay, the next item is the president's report, remarks. It's a little bit longer because we have mostly new people up here, and there were a lot of things going on. It will not be like this in the future. Some of the things that we've dealt with since the July meeting, we now have an organizational chart for the members to see if you're interested. It's posted on that door back there, and also over here. It shows that the POA has about 145 employees, but about 70 of them are part-time. That includes like starters and rangers on the golf course, some of the wait staff, especially those involved with rental events. We have some summer hires because we got a lot of grass to cut. So again, you can see on the poster, either poster is the exact same thing, okay? The POA has taken a large financial hit due to COVID-19 restrictions resulting in the loss of income in food and beverages, especially in rentals and also outside golf play. So we certainly encourage everyone, if you have the opportunity to come over to eat or drink for a while, please do so. We continue to work for a clearer picture of the overall financial position of the POA at this time. We did have one executive session since the last board meeting where we dealt with personnel and legal issues. The POA seems to be involved with 5 lawsuits at this time. That's the only comment I can make on that. The previous board had applied for, and you'll hear a little bit more about this, for a COVID-19 SBA loan for $669,000. And it's my understanding that if you kept your employees hired during all this time, that it can be forgiven. The staff has informed me they've been following the rules exactly by that. The first monthly payment is $37,700. That's due on November the 14th. So we certainly, hopefully have everything covered so we don't have to deal with that. We ended up with about 80 responses from residents who volunteered to be on one of the committees. And what happened, we were able to appoint about 30. They'll be appointed tonight to the different ones. So we thank everybody for their interest. We reviewed the POA's disaster management plan. We had to make a few changes due to changing board members, and we have a good working relationship with both the city and the Hancock County Emergency Operations Center. In my opinion, the plan is well written. The RV park has been remarked. It was started earlier, some trees trimmed and general maintenance going on at the same time. Several members have asked what happens when the covenants expire on their property. First, the city ordinances will take the place of the covenants. The ordinances were mirrored after the covenants as much as was possible. Covenants can do some things ordinances cannot do, and ordinances can do some things that covenants can't do. Then the next question was asked, what would happen if the city ordinances were not in place? We would then fall under the ordinance of the Hancock County Board of Supervisors. The POA and the city are both working closely together to make this transition as smoothly as possible. The goal of the new ID cards, I believe Mr. Abity.
Right here.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were over there. The general manager, he will speak to that. The basic idea is we need to be able to see who's considered a member in good standing, and he'll explain more about that. We still have ways to go to implement it, but it continues to move forward. The process for developing the 2021 budget has started. This is going to be a challenge because of expiration of some of the covenants, adds uncertainty in income projections, and we're going to have to make some assumptions along the way. At this moment, I don't know exactly what those assumptions will be. We also had a meeting we invited all the real estate brokers in this area to come and talk and meet with the new board members. The brokers had some interesting ideas. Number one actually was the POA website is in dire need of upgrading to make it easier for potential buyers to actually look and see what's going on. According to the brokers, the main reasons for buying in Diamondhead seem to be three things in no particular order. We have an overall safe community, it's clean and well maintained, and then all the various amenities that are available for residents to use. The board has met with the GM and most of the staff. I think I can speak for the board members when I say we've been impressed with the competence and the dedication of everyone. Our first board meeting was recorded and uploaded to YouTube by a resident. They're doing that again tonight. Due to the COVID-19 problems, restrictions rather, we have not been able to move from recording the meeting and then uploading it to YouTube yet, but we're working on that. Hopefully we can get more information shortly. There's a detailed map of when the covenants expire in specific areas. It's the colored map you see over there. Please check that out. That's the legal, or that represents the official position of the POA on when covenants expire in specific areas. That poster will be available during the monthly meetings. Another one is in the lobby of the POA offices, and a third will be on the website if it's not there today, I'm not sure. There are several legal questions that have never been answered in terms of the future of the POA and funding. So we're going to need to get some legal answers, not just conjecture, so that we can develop plans for the future. We proposed having a list of all vendors and what they were paid each month. There's actually an internal debate on whether or not the list should be made public or just to POA members in good standing. I'll just repeat that. There's a little debate on whether it should be put out in public or some sort of way made it available to POA members in good standing. Remember, the POA is not a true public entity, but rather it's a Mississippi nonprofit organization. The two are not the same. If you have an opinion on this, if you can let one of the board members or myself know after the meeting, or email us or call us, we appreciate it. If you wish to address the board about an agenda item, we're going to experiment a little bit with that tonight. You have to sign up ahead of time with the board attorney who's sitting right over here. Okay, you just sign your name and what topic you want to talk about. Print your name and do that, and then we'll call you up here. You have 3 minutes to make your point. We have a little timer here. Number 2. At 2 minutes and 2 minutes, the green light will come on. At 2 minutes and 30 seconds, the yellow light will come on, and at 3 minutes, a red light is on. So that's the way that will be handled. I want to make sure that you understand the 3 minutes, first off, that's what's usually used in most public meetings. This is not a back and forth dialogue. This is your opportunity to inform the board about how you feel on an agenda topic and how you want the board to vote. So please understand the difference, okay? When you talk, we expect you to just address the chair, which happens to be me tonight. No personal, nothing calling Mr. Becker something or other. You know, just address me with it and we'll go from there. And see how that works out, because we did not actually adopt any specific rules because we wanted to experiment a little bit to see how it will all work out. So if you want to address the board about a topic that is not on the agenda, that's later in the meeting. So again, you can sign up the same way with the attorney who's sitting right over there. Just an FYI, when you address the board, you will appear on a video that's going to be uploaded to YouTube. So if your picture is on the post office wall, you might want to be careful. Okay? That's a joke, okay? You will see an area on the agenda that says consent agenda. If you're not familiar with that, consent agenda is sometimes used to make meetings move along a little faster. Basically, items in consent agenda should be non-controversial, and there's no known opposition to the individual consent agenda items. A board member does have the right to pull an item from consent agenda if he or she wants to do that. The item will then move to the regular agenda. Consent agenda tonight involves one vote to appoint all of the committee members instead of having to read and vote on 8 separate agenda items. That's it for me tonight. Next, we have the general manager's report.
Am I on the timer?
No, you're not on the timer. but that could change.
It brings to mind a story that I experienced while I was a golf professional in California. One of the members came to me and said, "Greg, why don't you color the flags? Red for front, white for middle, blue for back." And I thought about it for a second and I said, "Well, what will we do with Mr. Jones?" He says, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, Mr. Jones is colorblind." He says, "Well, that doesn't seem fair." I said, "Exactly the point. It wouldn't seem fair." So if someone has the mic and they're colorblind, you may have to wave your hand and get to the green time.
We'll make sure.
First off, I want to thank all of you, members and property owners, for your patronage here at the club. The club would not exist without your support and participation in activities, events, and I mean this on behalf of the department managers and all the support staff. Your patronage is important and appreciated. On that note, I want to share with you that we are all human beings, and as employees, our job is to provide you with product and service. And our goal every day is to improve that aspect of what we do. Sometimes we fall short of your expectations. It's never on purpose. The mistakes that are made when a staff member doesn't quite meet your expectations is not done on purpose. It's simply they fell short of your expectations. So when you experience something, whether it be in the dining room or on the golf course, tennis courts, or swimming pool, that perhaps isn't exactly what you thought it should be, seek one of us out. Seek the department manager out. Have a conversation with him or her and bring it to their attention, because through that, you're providing constructive comment and criticism to us. And if we're serious about being who we are, we will react and try and do better. So thank you for that. I guess on my summary, the first thing I need to do is to talk about finances. And each of you have received a packet of information from me that outlines not only the month of July, but year to date, and it gives it by department. In summation, I won't go through each line, but in summation, our challenge is, due to COVID, the response and participation needs to be greater. It certainly impacted our revenue opportunities, and as a result, we try and save where we can on expenses. The challenge that we have is when you cut expenses, you run the risk of compromising the service. So we're in a fine line between making sure we deliver to you the quality of product and service that you deserve, but at the same time be mindful of the expenses. So that's something that we talk about on an everyday basis with the department managers, who are all very talented and very skilled and very involved in their operation. So on your summary sheet, you'll also see that I've listed the status of capital projects, the cash reserve that shows on a bank account, the accounts receivable balance, and also the update that I think, Ernie, you gave a minute ago in reference to the payroll protection plan. For those of you in the audience, this information is readily available and will be posted, I believe, on the newspaper. Is that right, Nancy? Mm-hmm. Yeah. The next item that I've provided for you in your packet deals with the budget timeline and schedule. We have already begun this process, and we'll be meeting with the department managers this week to do a preliminary run on both assumptions and budget by department. I think the schedule shows that the budget completion process will be in place and with the information delivered to you sometime late September. Also in your packet of information, I've drafted a concept as it's defined, a membership summary. And this is in reaction to an unknown in terms of the number of property owners who will continue to pay dues even if their covenants have expired. We don't know of the, I think it's 934 properties that the covenants have expired. Is that right, Gus? Roughly? So we hope a high percentage, if not all, will continue to pay dues, but that's to be determined. That results in a question as to the amount of revenue. And one of the thoughts that I had in this membership summary is to recognize that both the golf course and the tennis courts are grossly underutilized. In other words, there's not enough play and participation, there's vacancy. So I thought it would be an incentive to people to pay their dues and receive in return some access rights. And they would be in the form of gift vouchers that could be either used by the individual or passed on to a guest. Those vouchers would be in the form of rounds of golf, games of tennis, evening dinner for two here at the club, things to say thank you and get you more involved in participating in the various amenities. So when you have time, read through this and welcome your feedback. I'm sure one of the committees will go through it in detail with myself and others as we go along. The next item that I have on this packet of information is the schedule of fees. These relate to those members who are in good standing, who elect to then expand their membership opportunity to include golf membership and or tennis membership. And the fees are base fees that we would use in our assumptions as we begin to format the budgets for 2021. Most of the fees are very close to this past year with minor, if any, increase. Again, our objective is to get more participation, get more volume. Looking at the next sheet, this sheet simply, it's a form that I'll continue to use, but it shows the amount of usage both at golf, tennis, the various swimming pools, the activity at the Marina, the RV park. And what we're trying to do is to have the managers who are responsible for each of these areas to become more accountable and recognize that each entity is a business amongst a group of businesses, and they are beginning to adapt to that and keep proper statistics so we can understand the volume of usage and what our availability is as we go forward. There's an expenditure that I think, Jerry, you may want to address at some point in reference to the airport, maybe a little later in the meeting. And the last handout that I have in the packet that I provided you deals with the violations committee and compliance report. And again, this is just statistical information, all of which will be meaningful to us as we move forward. So I'm prepared to answer any questions that you might have. I know it's a lot of printed material, but I encourage you to read it when you are bored and are ready for a nap. Read it and digest it and give me your feedback, because we're here for you and we thank you for the opportunity. So, any questions? Yes.
Greg, in the past, we received from the general manager on a monthly basis a new hire report. showed whether the person was replacing someone or whether they were just a new hire, because new hires above and beyond the status quo are supposed to be approved by the board. Could we get that in the future, please?
Absolutely. We have a form that requires board approval before we hire a new employee. We've had a number of employees who've returned to either school or have left employment here, and we're seeking some assistance in certain areas. But at the same time, in trying to monitor payroll expenses, we're not overly anxious to bring that in. But on the flip side of that coin is, do you have enough staff to cover the service that you need? So it's a balance act, and we'll get there. But in reference to the form, yes, we'll present it to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Do we have anyone who signed up to speak on an agenda item? Anyone? Okay, we'll move on to the next thing. We're now into the unfinished business section. We have the member comments procedures. Anybody? I mentioned this, we didn't really do anything with that we wanted to adopt, because we're gonna just experiment with something for a few things tonight. So I think somebody, if you wanna just move to table it, we can just keep it on there in case we are able to do something before the next meeting.
I'll motion to table.
Mr. Tozan makes that motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Gillen seconds. Okay, all in favor? Okay, on the approval of meeting minutes by email vote. Those of you might remember, we talked about that at the first meeting that we have. The whole idea on this was to, if we can do it by email and have a meeting like today, then we can get it in next month's edition of the Diamondhead News. The deadline for the Diamondhead News is usually the 13th of the month before it's published. So that would be helpful to us. We have to do this, we have to have all 11 people have to agree to do that. We did an informal question about that. 10 of 10 people who were present said that was fine with them. Mr. Nutting was in Canada, so now Mr. Nutting is here. So would someone like to make that motion again?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Mr. Ramirez makes a motion to approve the minutes by email.
I second it.
Okay, Ms. Cicelo seconds. Any comments? All in favor? Just raise your hand. Aye, whatever. Okay, it's unanimous, so we have approved that. Okay, now we're on to the consent agenda. Since an individual does have the right, an individual board member does have the right to pull something off of this. If they want to, then it would move to the regular agenda. However, nobody has said anything. I don't know, does anybody, I will get, yes.
So in terms of the committees, and I understand I'm not on any of the committees or didn't ask to be on any, but I don't understand the process that went through in terms of the selection of the committee members. And I just got the committee charters actually yesterday, if I remember correctly. And they weren't sent out ahead of time, like we had talked about as a board, 7 days ahead of time for items to be discussed. So I don't think this is as simple as you indicated in terms of consent agenda, and I would like to see them pulled to regular agenda items so we have discussion on the matter.
You want to pull all of them?
Yes.
Okay, he's got the right to do that, so all that now moves to the regular agenda. So now we go through each one on their own. Somebody like to make a motion to approve the violations committee members in the charter? Mr. Gillen makes that motion. We need a second. Mr. Becker seconds that. Anything that you want to say, Mr. Gillen?
I don't see any problem.
So I just have a question. Other than the committee members, who else saw the charter for that? Other than the committee members themselves, did anybody else who wasn't on that committee see the charter?
Some did, but I don't remember, I don't know offhand. It was meant, all the charters are simple things saying you get to, if you're on the golf committee, you look at the golf stuff.
So I
Okay.
understand they're simple, I really do, but I mean, if we agreed that, hey, we get things out 7 days ahead of time, follow the package, and we didn't do it for this simple matter, I guess my question is how will we follow that for future, further, more complicated discussion?
Well, I think we need to make sure of what we said. We actually said, if you want to put something on the agenda, you have to email it to everybody on the committee, okay? 7 days or before, okay? On the board, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. On the board, okay? That was done as far as I know,
Yeah,
okay?
well, the package, again, the charters weren't mailed out to the entire board, neither were the process on how the committee members were selected. That's my disagreement with the way the process was. It wasn't fully vetted amongst the entire board. It was vetted at the committee level. And I understand, and again, I'm just trying to make a point here. I don't see how that is including of all the board to make an informed decision on things. Again, for a very simple matter, as we get into more complex matters, I want to make sure that we're going to be following that, because it was 7 days, the package for what Secretary Nancy sent out in terms of the form you fill out, just as General Manager Abity did with his request for a motion, and then the details behind that. That's what I'm asking for as a board member, that we get that for what we agreed to 7 days ahead of time.
Okay, we did not agree to that. We agreed to submit things to board members if you wanted to put something on the agenda. There is no way that you can do that and get all the stuff together and send it out immediately. It just takes time to do that. This is not the same as the previous board who would just write, boom, boom, boom.
You just said it was a simple matter, and the charters are relatively simple. So you're saying that they were too complicated to send out for the entire board to review?
No.
Okay, all right,
So we have a disagreement, okay?
okay.
So now we made a motion on this, and we had a second. Anybody have any other discussion? Okay, we call for a vote on the motion to approve the violation committee members and the chair. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? One. Yes. Okay, we now have a motion to approve the charter of the Recreation Committee and appoint the members to that committee. Somebody want to make that motion? Mr. Tozan makes a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Ramirez seconds. Any discussion, Mr. Tozan? Anyone else?
I've said my piece in terms of that. I just am curious too why, and maybe it's offline or whatever, but really understand how the selection of the committee members were made.
Would you like to explain that one, Mr. Tozan?
I'll give you how this committee's process was. I asked each board member to provide 5 names, meeting a list of 4. We selected the 4 people who garnered the highest ratings of those selections based on each individual's knowledge of that person, looking for the diversity that we hope to get, and hopefully have a committee that will function best for the association.
Thank you for the explanation.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so now we're going to vote on the motion to approve the charter of the Recreation Committee and appoint the following members. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ms. Ms. Rayner and Mr. Marthouse. Next, we have a motion to approve the charter of the Futures Committee and appoint members. Somebody like to make that one? Okay, Mr. Gillen will make that. We need a second for that. Mr. James seconds that. Any discussion? Anybody else have any discussion? Okay, we call for the question. All in favor of approving the charter for the Futures Committee and appointing the members? Please raise your hand. Aye, opposed? 2 opposed. The 5th one, to approve the charter of the Marina Airport Committee and appoint the following members.
We got number 4.
Oh, I'm sorry, number 4, right. motion to approve the charter for the Food and Beverage Club Committee and appoint members. Anyone?
I make the motion.
Mr. Ortell makes that motion.
I'll second.
Mr. James seconds. Mr. Ortell, anything you'd like to say about that?
No.
Anyone else? Okay, we call for the question on the Food and Beverage Committee. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? 3 opposed, Mr. Nutting, Mr. Morehouse, and Ms. Rayner opposed. The next one is the motion to approve the charter of the Marina Airport Committee and appoint the following members. Anyone want to make that motion? Mr. Gillen makes that motion. Need a second?
I'll second that.
Second, Dr. Nutting. Any discussion? Mr. Gillen? No discussion. Anyone else? Okay, we'll call the question. Everyone in favor of approving the Marina Airport Committee, please raise your hand. All opposed? 1 opposed. Next, we have a motion to approve the charter of the Administration Committee. Man, put too many check marks here, sorry. Motion to approve the charter on the Grounds Committee and appoint the following members. Anybody want to make that particular motion? Mr. Ramirez makes that motion. Second, Mr. Tozan. Any discussion, Mr. Ramirez?
No, I'm good.
Anybody else? Okay, we'll call the question. All in favor of approving that motion, please raise your hand. Okay, and we have 1 opposed there. That was on the Grounds Committee. Next is a motion to approve the charter of the Administration Committee and appoint members. Anyone want to make that motion? Mr. Gillen makes that motion. Second from anybody? Mr. Becker seconds that. Any discussion on that? Mr. Gillen? No? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Wait, one is opposed, Mr. Morehouse. Okay, on the next one, a motion to approve the charter of the Golf Committee and appoint the following members. I want to make that motion. Mr. Becker will make that motion. Second, Mr. Dr. Nutting. Mr. Becker, any comments? No? Anybody else? Okay, we need to call the question on that. All in favor of doing that, appointing that, please raise your hands. All opposed? Mr. Morehouse and Ms. Rayner. Okay, the next thing, now we're on to the regular agenda. The first thing deals with residents not in good standing attending POA events. Is anyone interested in making that motion? Mr. Becker will make that motion. Any second? Mr. James seconds. The motion is actually to approve a policy that allows only members in good standing to participate in POA-sponsored activities. Mr. Becker?
We have worked on the account receivable for the past 2 years. We have worked hard on the accounts receivable for the past 2 years and collected $500,000 in past dues money, but there are still people who refuse to pay. The bylaws state that they're not eligible to use any of the facilities, and I think this is only fair to the members who pay their dues every month, show up at these meetings and support the POA.
Anyone else have a comment?
I do.
Ms. Rayner?
I just wanted to say that, have we discussed or figured out how we are going to prevent non-members and the costs associated with that? I know that we're working on cards, but we have a very short amount of time to be able to pass this agenda item, and then we have, our Halloween is coming up, things like that. Are we going to be able to keep that for just members only?
We have been working, or Darian's been working on the system to check that in the various sections
as you pay your bills or participate at the pools, whatever. We're going to have to keep working in that direction and do the best we can. There's no easy, quick fix, but if we don't set a policy, we're never gonna get there.
Dr. Nutt?
Yeah, I would concur with Director Becker. We have wonderful amenities, but if no one pays to use them, they're not gonna be there. And the system isn't quite perfect as of yet, and some people are gonna slip through the cracks, and so be it. But we're gonna work very hard to try to keep the revenue coming in so that we can actually have these amenities down the road.
I do know for the trunk or treat that they've done for a number of years, last year was the first year that you had to go and get a bracelet, like, in order to participate. Or maybe it was the second year, but they went in, and so when they went in to get the bracelet, they were able to check to make sure that the person was up to date. So it did work in that case. Other issues, you're right, I agree, the pools and stuff like that. But we've got to start somewhere. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor of implementing that, please raise your hands. Okay, it's unanimous. The next thing is a board member's conflict of interest. Anybody like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Tozan, any second?
I'll second.
Mr. James? Mr. Tozan?
Just that the discussion that we had was over the potential for any conflict of interest on the part of a board member or any employee. It's important that we adhere to the code of ethics that was developed last year. I, as an employee of the POA, have to abstain from voting on anything that may benefit me as an employee, so that there is no conflict of interest. And each of us, if that conflict presents itself, should also abstain from voting on that issue.
And the 4 returning board members should have all signed that last year. Am I correct? Does anybody remember? Okay, so those are, you don't have to sign it again unless you'd like to. Okay, so once you sign it, we need to get the signed paper to the secretary, who will then get it to the HR person.
Ernie, I'm fully in favor of it, and we run it through our legal counsel, and he's fine with it.
I didn't, but yes, he's shaking his head, because it was used last year, or last year or two. Okay, any other comments? Ms. Rainer?
Just really quick, the social media and communications policy, I don't have that as part of the packet, so I'm not gonna sign it this time.
Okay, well, we've talked about that briefly, and they'll get that to you probably tomorrow, okay? All right, so all in favor of those,
Excuse me, Ernie?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'd just like a copy of that also. I looked for it but couldn't find it. So yeah, I'd like a copy of that also.
okay, so that's, okay, we got that. Anyone else? Yeah, can y'all just send that to all the board members, then we don't have to deal with it individually? Okay, that'll be taken care of. Okay, so we have a motion to approve that all board members review, adopt, and sign this code of ethics that was dated March 15, 2019. All in favor of that process once they get the parts that they need? Or do you want to wait?
How can we approve? How can we approve something we haven't seen in advance of seeing it? You might have to table this for one or waited.
I don't have a problem with doing that. I mean, we've been here. Somebody want to make that motion?
Motion to table.
Made the motion.
Yeah. Mr. Tozan made the motion, so he makes to withdraw it or table it. Okay? The third one is the reestablishment of the comment system that was formerly known as the Red Top. Anyone want to make that motion?
So Ernie, on that, not necessarily the reason for the proposal is actually so that we had some avenue for any member to be able to ask a question or have a question answered by the POA. So that was the reason for the proposal of the quote, red top, unquote, that's what that was originally. Last week after that proposal was submitted, the POA now has on their website a comments section, which is where you can go in and do the same thing online. And so as far as a red top quote unquote, we don't need that form. We have this other avenue for people to be able to ask questions and get answers, responses back in a timely manner.
Okay, so you want to just pull this?
So let's just pull this and we'll see how the comment section goes. If we need something else down the road, then we can address it then. But let's since we already have that in place at this time, let's not duplicate. So I would like to pull that if possible. Oh, go ahead.
Me?
Go ahead.
You're saying it's on the website, but we have so many people here who do not use computers. You go be able to go to the website, whereas if you've got a form someplace like Country Club, wherever it happens to be, then they can use that form instead.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but there is also a hard copy of that, is that correct? So, and I think they can pick that up at the POA office.
Can we make it available in other areas?
Yes.
You're saying yes. Okay, so now we've been all over the place on this one. Go on, Ms. Rayner.
Sorry, I got a quick question. So on the website, where do these questions or comments actually go? Okay, so they go to, and Nancy, do you answer the questions or do you distribute them to?
I forward them to the appropriate department head.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. And then as far as the paper ones, who receives them? Is it you, Nancy, as well?
They will be going to the appropriate department head, but
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, we've kind of made a mess of this thing. So
So
it's your
basically-
motion, so where are we now?
So at this point, I'd like to pull that motion.
So just make the you want to table the motion?
Correct.
Okay. That's tabled. Number 4 is the administrative responsibilities of the board president. There's a motion in there. Would anyone like to make that motion? Mr. Tozan makes a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Dr. Nutting seconds that. Discussion, Mr. Tozan?
Just that, as you read the bylaws, there is a need for the board to give.
Whoops.
You can keep it here. If you read the bylaws, there is a need for the board to give the president the approval to pretty much do his day-to-day job without involving the board on every small item. We talked to the attorney, and he provided the language in this motion to cover that issue. Should I read the language in the motion? Yes. The motion to approve board authorization of the president to execute those general executive and administrative documents on behalf of the corporation that do not substantially impact the corporation or its members, and for which the governing document of the corporation does not explicitly require approval of the full board.
Anyone wish to comment on that?
I would.
Ms. Rayner?
First of all, the language is a little ambiguous because who makes the decision of what is not substantially impacting the corporation? Second of all, I'm an information person, so frankly, you know, we've only been this board in a month, and it seems that everybody is operating on their own little things, and there's very little communication as to what's going on between each and every board member.
Okay, Dr. Nutt?
My comment is, I'm surprised we need to make a motion for this. Isn't it automatic when you get elected, Ernie, and congratulations? Because past presidents have had the right to do what their job is entitled. So why are we making a motion for something that already exists? Is this including something else, or did we miss something in the past?
I think the attorney would have to explain it, or maybe Mr. Morehouse.
So the president derives his ability to do his job from the board, right? The board provides the power to the president in the sense of doing duties. So previous boards would bring, you know, administrative type stuff, but they, for instance, if we sold lots at the POA, right? And the president signs the sales agreement, if you will, at the closing, that came before, at least in the last board, where we'd say, hey, X number of lots, we authorize the attorney to negotiate the price, and then the president is authorized to sign it. But it wasn't given carte blanche like this. So my comments are, this is pretty nebulous in terms of what documents we're talking about. And Gus, you would recall, we did bring certain information to the board. The board would approve that and then allow me to go sign documents as the previous president. So in the bylaws, it does state clearly where the president's power is derived from, and the authority is given from the board to the president. I understand the intent of this because there's a lot of nebulous administrivia to sign and approve, but I think it is a little bit broad in my opinion.
Mr. Wrighton, would you like to comment since this came from you?
It's possible you can put a financial threshold, upper limit on it.
You said there's a possibility that you could put an upper limit on a threshold?
Sure, $500, $200.
Yeah, so, see, I think certain things need to still be brought, again, to Ms. Rayner's point for communication and discussion. And again, like, and we did that as well, and you do recall, Gus, it just wasn't this, it was like, I have these lots that we want to sell to whoever that may be, and then I would get, the board would approve my authority to go sign those, and I would go to Cassano's office or whoever the closing office was, and I would sign those documents. I would tend to agree with Ms. Rayner in terms of that.
That also means you have to wait a month to get things done?
No, it wasn't that quick. You could call a special meeting, or you have the ability to call one, right?
I'm familiar with that, thank you.
Or two directors can ask you to call a special meeting, so those can happen. Or you can, you know, real estate agreements take a while to come to an agreement. We can authorize that. All I'm saying is that there's no examples of what items that don't impact the corporation or its members.
If there's no financial impact to the company in a negative sense, you could have a zero threshold. Signing a real estate contract has no cost to the company. That would be no substantive impact to the company at all, which is really ultimately what it says, is that there's no substantive impact to the corporation or the members. So if you have a contract that doesn't cost the corporation any money to sign that contract, that's ultimately what this is aimed at. Very administrative, very straightforward, basic stuff.
Well, is there a way to list the examples of that? Because you listed real estate, but what other examples are that are straightforward and basic? So if you, my point is that if you can't list it, then this leaves a little bit of the door open.
I had asked previously at our last, when we had an executive session, but I had asked the question, what does this entail? Because like Dennis had already pointed out, the president does have certain administrative powers to do so, but this is very ambiguous, and this opens the door even wider.
The bylaws are more ambiguous.
That's an opinion.
So Gus, from legal counsel's opinion, you're comfortable with this?
I'm comfortable with this. The idea is that, you know,
Gary,
there's,
give him the mic so people can hear.
The idea is that the president would be able to sign contracts that don't have any real impact on the community or on the board. It's just administrative running a business. A president is asked to sign numerous documents, asking me to list what all those could be. They could change from day to day, but it could be a real estate contract. It could be something involving someone's employment. It could be that we need to sell a tractor because it's sitting outside and it's better for the company to sell it or not sell it. No one, when I say substantive impact, that essentially means it's gonna impact the corporation financially in some way. This would allow the company to sell something, not spend any money, but have money coming in and improve the company's position.
See, from my point of view, if our legal counsel is happy with it, I would be in favor of it, because it'd be a darn nuisance if we had to call a meeting every time we wanted to do anything, and we wouldn't get anything done here. We'd be meeting 7 times a month. So if legal counsel is in favor of this, then I'm happy with it.
I can make one comment. I'm not hung up on this one way or the other. The legal counsel suggested that this be done. When you mention substantively impact the corporation, it's like the U.S. Supreme Court's definition of pornography. I can't define it, but I know it when I see it. And that's kind of the same way. I'm not getting into porn, okay? I don't mean it that way. But I don't know if you can list every single thing that comes up like that. So, but I'm not hung up. Whatever y'all want to do, it's okay with me.
I agree with Stuart, and I don't think that our president, having to call a meeting every time we have to come to something, gets us anything done that we need to be able to move forward and do it. He's the president, he knows what he's doing, we need to move on.
You do give a president report each time.
I believe in the last board, we determined that the president had authority to spend money up to $5,000 out of his own discretion before we needed to get the rest of the board involved. So I recommend that we amend this to make it for any monetary value less than his discretion, or $5,000. And I think that'll eliminate a whole lot of the discussion and the controversy about how much lots are worth and so forth. If you have the authority to spend $5,000, then you should have the authority, I believe, to sell something or to sign paperwork that has less than a $5,000 effect on the board or the community.
My thought is $5,000 is substantively impacts something. It seems to be a significant amount to me, but that's just a personal view.
If you're not comfortable with 5,000, we can lower it to the 2,500. The key thing here is that you do a report anytime you do anything of this nature, and the board is informed. Is that correct?
Yeah, whatever y'all want, it's fine with me. I'm not.
I would go with Gary on the $5,000. You'll find during your job that there'll be things come in for $3,500, or the kitchen staff might need something $3,500 on a day's notice, or the golf staff. And if we give you the right to go up to $5,000, I think it'll make you and the running of this committee work better.
I agree with that. If we just amend.
Okay, somebody want to amend it to add a $5,000 maximum?
I will amend the motion to add a $5,000 maximum.
Okay, Mr. Tozan makes the motion to amend it to a $5,000 maximum. Ms. Rayner? Seconds it. All in favor, please just raise your hands. Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, the last one says airport capital expense, a motion to approve not to exceed $4,000 to include fuel, dispensing equipment, inspection for the Diamondhead Airport. Anybody want to make that a motion? Mr. Gillen makes a motion. Mr. Becker seconds. Any discussion?
If you go, when we did an inspection, the tank does need to be inspected, but the big thing of this is the hose reel. The hose reel was damaged in Katrina and has deteriorated to the point now where it is unusable, and you've got a high octane fuel hose hanging out there for people to run over, do whatever with, and it's a dangerous situation. And that's why this is on the agenda. The inspection is because it hasn't been inspected in who knows how long. And again, this is high octane fuel, and I think we need to do what we need to do to ensure that the airport is kept in a safe manner.
I'm assuming that.
Beck?
Sorry, go ahead.
When this first came before the committee for the airport and the south side or the Marina, it had an additional $24,000 to replace the reader that the self-services use for to pump gasoline because it's old and it's difficult to obtain parts for it. And so we had a meeting with the general manager and with Adam, the facilities manager, and Jerry and myself, and we came to an agreement that if that unit should fail, that we would on a basis of daylight hours be able to send someone out to pump gas. So what we really did was take a $28,000 item and reduce it to $4,000 with the cooperation of the general manager and the facilities manager, who agreed to go the extra step in case it broke, because it would take a month to get new parts. So they have a plan in place to address the emergency that would occur and saved us the $24,000. We're down to this $4,000, which we really need.
Mr. Ramirez?
The $4,000 is basically for the hose reel and the inspection, is that my understanding? That is correct? I'm just wondering, the inspection is gonna show that there's some maintenance that needs to be done on that tank. I can't imagine that it wouldn't, but anyway, that's not included in this $4,000, is that correct?
With maintenance on the tank?
Yeah, it needs to be painted, sandblasted, painted, or whatever.
There are things that,
There are some things that Greg is already doing, not Greg, Adam is already undertaken
Okay.
on that tank, which is just regular maintenance, and it's not included in this.
Okay.
I also think he's adding a light out there where that would make it easy for them to see what they're doing when they're fueling at night.
Okay.
So that's not included in this.
All right.
So the inspection, when they do the inspection, if there is anything that needs to be done that could affect the safety of that tank or to obviously make it last longer, then that's something we'll have to take up at a future time.
That's what I wanted to say. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Any other comments? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to spend up to $4,000 in capital expenses on the fuel dispensing equipment and inspection. All in favor, raise your hand. It's unanimous. Is there anyone, Mr. Gus, who wants to speak on a non-agenda item? Okay, we have Mr. Chuck Ingram, who wants to speak on the quality of staff and their assistance.
I'd like to bring to the attention of the board, as well as to the general manager, who probably knows this already. But on Thursday evening, after an event here at the club, my wife got home and discovered that somewhere along the way during the evening, she'd lost her wedding ring and diamond. She immediately called the club, alerted the staff, and we came hot-footing it back here to take a look around. When I arrived, Tracy's outside with a flashlight looking. We get in here and Teresa's on her hands and knees crawling around the floor looking for it. Sean's looking, and Candace is participating in trying to find it. We tried to retrace my wife's steps as best she could remember them during the entire evening, to no avail. Needless to say, it was a tense evening at our house. Anyway, the next morning I talked to Robert and asked him to give a second look around. And then later in the morning I mentioned it to Hoppy. Now Hoppy was not constrained by what my wife thought she had done. He went to where he thought things might have happened. And as I was leaving the club, in fact I was in the parking lot in my golf cart, when he called and said he'd found the ring. So I really appreciate the diligence of the staff of the country club and their concern for the members. Thank you very much, Craig. Thank you all.
Do you want to tell us where it was found? Mr. Ingram, where was it found?
In the trash can in the ladies' room.
Okay, the next meeting will be held on Monday, September the 21st. Anyone make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Okay, we have Mr. James and then Tozan second. Again, if you want to look at the map of the expiration dates, we've got people who can help you if you need help, or at the two organizational charts that are up there. Thank you for coming.